You good?
Yeah.
My Chromebook's being managed.
Here's the flag. Right behind us.
That's okay.
C-SPAN, correct?
While we're waiting, I have some announcements to make. It is the current policy of the East Penn School District that masks are required for all individuals without medical exemptions whenever indoors, regardless of vaccination status. I know there are a number of people that want to address the board, and so just if you do want to request the board at the appropriate time in the meeting, please submit a request. I think there are forms in the back to participate in public comment before we get to the public comment portion of the meeting. We ask that all members of the community conduct themselves responsibly, civilly, and courteously at all times, so that the community members that wish to have the opportunity to be heard by the board can be heard. So our required conduct includes not acting in a way that disrupts the proceedings, not using vulgar, abusive, threatening, or obscene language or actions, and failure to follow these guidelines result in the board president or a member of the administrative team requesting the disruptive member of the audience to leave the meeting. Law enforcement will be called on to assist if such a request is not honored.
Yeah, I had to go through the startup thing a couple minutes.
Okay. Okay. Another announcement is after the Pledge of Allegiance, please remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of Bob Misko, a former East Penn administrator who recently passed away. Bob was a member of the East Penn team for 20 years as an assistant principal at Emmaus Junior High School, a principal of Emmaus Junior High School, and principal of Lower McCunchy Middle School. So with that, I'll now call the August 23rd meeting of the East Penn Board of School Directors to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Standing. Our first order of business is request to address the board. I remind people that we have a lot of individuals wishing to speak, so comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. So with that, I'll get started. The first up is Wynn Schuker from Allentown on thanking board for new masking policy. Someone else's.
Yeah. I'm going to read because I'm incredibly nervous and I don't want to be here. I'd like to thank Dr. Campbell and the school board for following the data and science and making the safe decision to require masks. No one is pro-mask, but I think this decision gives us the best chance to keep our schools open, which we all agree is the primary goal. I hope you hold firm to continuing to follow the science-based recommendations of the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and every hospital around here. We have seen what happened when there are no mask mandate. Schools had to shut down almost immediately. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. This is what will happen to us if we don't all mask. I remind you that we know now that vaccination alone does not protect against transmission. Schools and kids 13 to 17 are the leading infection drivers. Even if a child or an adult is asymptomatic, they are still a carrier to their children, parents, grandparents, and their siblings. I went home after the last meeting and did my own research because I wanted to believe. I want to know where people are getting the information because overwhelmingly across every germane medical field relating to this virus, across the nation, across the world, across fact-based medical studies, experts say we should get vaccinated, wear masks, and social distance. This is the pandemic of our lifetime, and we're getting into the worst phase. A carrier of the original Wuhan virus infected 1.2 to 2 people. Virus versus the carrier Delta variant now infects 5 to 9 people with 1,000 times higher viral load. Yes, mercifully, the absolute number of children dying right now is low, right now. But it won't stay that way if we don't vaccinate, mask, and social distance. But dying is really not the only important outcome for our children. 30% of infected people have long-term COVID symptoms. Even the experts don't know what these long-term effects on our children will be, even if they're asymptomatic. Why are we taking this chance for something that a lot of kids don't really complain about and admit that they've gotten used to? I'm absolutely not telling you to downplay your children's concern or issues. Quite the opposite. I respect it. But why not show them that this is a temporary obstacle that you can overcome with all the great resources that the school could provide? Show them that they can do this for the greater good of themselves, their friends, their family, their community. Isn't this the message that we should be promoting? Children, for the most part, follow the attitudes of their parents. Ask yourself what role you are playing in it. Children will not be masked all day long. They literally can't because they have to eat. But we can help reduce the chance of transmission, and that is the best that we can do. I am beyond baffled why masking, something that's so obvious and so easy, and the thing that people are fighting against, what rights are being trampled on.
Excuse me, Ms. Shukri, I have to ask you to finish up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Jennifer Henry on masks.
My name is Jennifer Henry and I live in Upper Milford. I have 3 children in the district. I spoke at last meeting on how we should have a choice for the students and staff to wear a mask. After we spoke, we were told that there's no changes to the current mandate and it was not on the agenda for that meeting. Tonight, I stand in front of you at the next meeting with masks mandated. When was the meeting to decide? Why wasn't the public invited?
Please do not disrupt the speakers. You're taking your time.
This decision was made without open input from families in a private vote. How are we, as parents, supposed to have faith in our school board when they're having private meetings to make major decisions? This decision did not give us as parents ample opportunity to find alternatives for this school year. My children were so excited to start school again without having to wear a mask so they could actually concentrate and actually learn. When I told my daughter that she had to wear a mask again, she cried. There's no good answer for her or any student with anxiety. If we get a medical mask exemption, She'll be in constant fear of being bullied. If she wears a mask, she'll lose yet more education because she can't focus. VESPA is not an option for her. How are our children going to succeed in high school and beyond when they aren't getting a proper education in elementary and middle school? I ask that you take a good hard look at what you're doing to our children's mental health and reconsider making masks optional. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Next up is Everett Henry. Next up is Everett Henry.
Good evening, members of the board, parents, and students. My name is Everett. I live in Upper Milford. I have 3 kids in the district. It's extremely frustrating when the district decides at the last minute to require masks and not give parents ample ability and to have an open discussion before the decision is made. When I found out about the mandate, I was angry, sad, and disappointed. My daughter had an anxiety attack when she found out. And when she listened to my wife just speak, she was in tears, listening to her speech. According to what I'm really disappointed about is the fact that the school district feels a mask mandate is the only solution to protect our children. According to the CDC and the Mayo Clinic, for the original COVID, people that ended up in the hospital with complications was due to underlying conditions like asthma, heart problems, weak and compromised immune systems. But one of the biggest reasons people ended up in the hospital in this country is due to obesity. I see the school district, in the school district, an apple juice counts as a serving of fruit. I was unaware a sugary fruit drink was an actual fruit. I guess I missed that class in school. Also, the school offers mostly sugary breakfast items like pastries or unhealthy cereals. Honestly, most of the food the school offers is unhealthy. So with knowing the fact that a healthy immune system can help protect you from COVID, why isn't the district doing more to promote health, exercise, and eating healthy? Why are you so hung up on masks and not other things that could help protect our kids? As of right now, Pennsylvania does not have an emergency disaster declaration declared or any type of state emergency declared. Also, the governor has said he is not mandating masks or requiring masks in school. So if the governor feels that masks should not be mandated in schools, then why does the district feel they should be? I see it as a recommendation from the CDC, but again, it's not law for mask mandates. When there was one, there was an order by the Secretary of Pennsylvania Department of Health that allowed mask mandates in stores, schools, and other places. But there was also an emergency disaster declared at that time. The governor has since ended that emergency disaster declaration that was declared, which ended the order for mask mandates. In closing, I want kids to be protected just as much as everyone here this evening, but requiring kids to wear a mask all day with hardly any mask breaks seems absurd. The fact that most of us here know kids are going to sneeze, snot, cough, or whatever else in their mask and continue to wear it the entire day, you should be asking yourself, how effective is a snot-filled rag mask, and how is that really going to protect them that well? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Next up is Carl Sell Jr. on freedom.
Hi, my name is Carl Sell. I'm in Makunji. I have one daughter here. I have no experience with any of your mask stuff and your science that you have. Obviously, we have no freedoms anymore, the way it seems now. And if y'all think that this mask thing is really protecting anybody, just look at the world we live in right now and the current state of our government. If you really think this mask thing is the most important thing, it's not. It's all about control and the lies. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Sell. Next up is Matthew Mull on civility and leadership.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Matthew Mull. I've had 3 daughters in this system, one now, one in grad school and one in college. It's been overall a positive experience. Not happy to have to be here tonight. For the record, I am vaccinated. I wear a mask. I work in, or used to work in an essential job function, supplying parts of the nuclear navy up until 2 months ago. Been to work, been there, understand the whole thing. That being said, there's something to be said about leadership. Name calling, snarkiness, things like that. This is what leads to the things that apparently happened at the last meeting. I wasn't here, I can't speak for it firsthand, but I've seen the social media, talked to friends on both sides of the issue. It's a complicated issue. It's important to remember, though, seeing a number of posts about remaining civil, this is coming from both sides. Obviously, I wasn't, as I said, I wasn't here last time. I didn't witness what happened. But seeing what's going on, seeing snide comments, seeing posts by school board members where they chastise one side and not another, that's a basic form of bullying. That is a biased form of leadership. Seeing right here just this evening, people are giggling and laughing just at the mention of another man's name and what he was going to talk about, not being called out. Your social media policy that you're going to vote on tonight includes sections in there about teachers not friending students. When you have teachers and staff of this school district mocking people, saying, I hope that a family member of yours gets sick and dies if you don't believe in vaccination. That is horrible. And that's why I'm saying here, this is where the board needs to step up and the administration, and you need to be unbiased and you need to hold everybody accountable to an equal standard. Because when you don't, that's what leads to the conspiracy theories and the frustration and the anger. When people feel that they are not being heard in forums like this, it just snowballs and you lose credibility. I ask everybody on both sides, calm down. There's no right or wrong answer. Yes, masks do offer a certain level of protection, but not masking, we've seen incredible rises in antidepressant prescriptions for kids, suicides, drug overdoses, things like that. It's not a simple if-then situation. We need to respect each other and listen to each other, and it starts at the top. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mull. Next up is Michelle Daster on masks. It's a public meeting.
My name is Michelle Daster. Some of you do know me. My little daughter was actually here crying at the last meeting because she was so nervous. For those of you who don't know me, I run a sports ministry. I actually run the leagues for the children of East Penn. I have come in contact with thousands of children. We've played in several leagues since January 1st of last year. Masks were required. They were here, they were here, they were here, they were over here. They were not worn by the children. There was one COVID case in the league. The girl was on the court with 2 other teams, one a team she practiced with, one she played with. Not one other child got COVID. Up until yesterday, I ran a summer league program with over 300 of your East Penn students. Not one COVID case, and they were maskless indoors with their parents who were also maskless. Now, it was optional. There were children who were masked. There were parents who were in masks. Your body, your choice. We had one issue with masks. And it was a little boy who every time he put it on, and I love that little boy, my goodness, but he would throw up running up and down the court in that mask. He threw up when he wore a mask and played, and was dizzy and lightheaded. And it was hard to watch as somebody who did, you deal with kids. You guys do too. It is hard to watch, and I'm on a board. I've had to make the decisions you make. It is not easy right now. There's no place you want to be. There is no greater good, which is what we've always appeased to. You can't appease to the masses right now. We're so divided and split down the middle, it's hard. So we're asking you to please let us choose. Let's take the burden off you. Let us choose what's best for our children, please. And I cannot believe I'm going to go here, but I am. If you are even considering vaccines for our children, please know this. I've had 5 miscarriages. Not every baby was not wanted. And to think for 1 second that would be in my child makes me ill. To think it was used to test vaccines. I would never, ever in a million years put that in my children or be a part of something so unethical. Not every baby was not wanted. Some of them were wanted and loved, whether you had them for a day,
Excuse me,
a
Ms.
second,
Daster, you have
or a
to
year.
finish up, please.
So please do not even consider mandating vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daster. Next up is Cameron Kennedy on masks as optional. Next up is Cameron Kennedy on masks optional.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Kennedy. I'm from Lower Macungie and a father to 4. My question this evening is, what's your plan for children who have a 504 medical exemption, like my daughters, one who has an apraxia of speech and one who has asthma? What disciplinary action are you going to take with your staff members and other students when they make my children feel like they're lesser than walking the halls and don't have a mask on? Since you've implemented a culture where everyone is potentially sick and contagious and that sharing is bad. You're awfully good at virtue signaling when it comes to COVID. Where was this concern when children were actually dying from the seasonal flu? Where's your concern about the mental health crisis in young people? This stuff is just common sense, but anyone that forces children to wear a mask outdoors in 80-degree temperatures probably wouldn't get it. We're not asking for a lot. We're asking that you make common sense decisions that reflect the wishes of the parents and the school district. Your job isn't to appease your superiors and go with the flow. It's to educate our children and do what's best for them. Optional masking is the best decision for our kids because children do not pose a high risk of transmission and are not at serious risk when they do contract the virus. Let the parents make the decisions for their families and their children. It's not your call. Lastly, I don't expect you to change your policies or grow a backbone. Just know that we are a part of a larger body of like-minded individuals, and you will see a mass exodus from your schools. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Next up is Jason Jenkins on masks.
Good evening. First, I wanted to say to the gentleman here, respect starts with choice. honoring our choices. That's where the respect comes in. So anyway, I wanted to speak about the new mask requirement. When we left here, Ms. Campbell on the 9th looked us all in the face, said we were going to be fine. Yet a couple days later, via email, parents are informed that East Penn will now require masks for everyone, without discussion, without sufficient input, without even any notice. You know, the format of these meetings dictates that we go first. So I'm not going to get on you too hard yet. I'm going to wait, and I think the other parents should also wait to give you your chance to justify your actions. But for once, can you tell us the truth? Can you stop with the games? If you want to tell us that you don't have a backbone, and if the CDC puts us at high or substantial, you're going to fold over, then that's fine. But then say it. You said you have daughters. This is, you know, who are you serving right now by this? Did you make that decision? Was there a meeting? If you tell us what happened, if you say I advocated for you guys, I did the best I could, but people above my pay grade overruled me and said it collectively had to be something that we do together. Okay, then we move on, and you're not the source of our angst. But right now, it's falling on you. I want to know what data was presented, what caused you to do a 180 5 days later. What happened? I looked at all the data, it was stagnant, period. So anyway, I'm going to get to masks. Without getting into the lack of safety and efficiency behind the decision to mandate masks for kids, it is illegal to mandate an EUA-approved medical device without informed consent. Mask use for viral transmission prevention is authorized by the EAU only. And the FDA even says that means the product is experimental only. The statute granting the FDA this power requires that the person being administered the unapproved product be advised of their right to refuse, which is never going to be done with our children. This statute says that medical experiments may not be performed on human subjects without their consent. This is also in the Nuremberg Code, and both the US and the FDA recognize the Nuremberg Code. It's also Pennsylvania law, which is very, very clear that it is unlawful, even in the case of emergency, to require a mask unless informed consent is secured. Furthermore, by requiring these children to wear a mask, you're promoting the idea that masks can prevent or treat a disease, which is, again, illegal, deceptive practices. The FDA specifically says on the box, as the assistant superintendent may remember, that it offers no protection. That's what we call in the law a disclaimer, a waiver of liability. And yet you fools sit here and make us all have to do this. It's madness. It really is. So again, there's no standards on any of these masks. There's been no proof in any way that they offer any microbial challenges. So in conclusion, this serves as my letter that my child does not consent to being forced to wear a mask, and her advocates will not fail to take the maximum action permissible under the law against your organization and against each of you personally. Accordingly, I urge you to comply with
Excuse me, Mr.
federal and
Jenkins,
state
you
law.
have to wrap up. Your time's expired.
Okay, well, I urge you to comply with the law. And Ms. Campbell, I await to hear your explanation for how this could get so out of control. I hope it's more than just a classification from the CDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Next is Troy Wilderson on masking.
Good evening. First, I want to start off by saying I'm the wild card. I have no kids. I'm an advocate. We were here last time, and I made a speech, top of my head, said my piece, but I got some facts that I was told a couple nights ago that really disturbed me. First, I've had a coworker of mine go to one of your ninth grade orientations. He was told, guess what? If my child becomes sick, they cannot use their cell phone and call me and let me know. They have to go to the nurse first. Boy, that's a red flag right there. What's that nurse going to do? Got to do a COVID test against parental consent? Don't think so. Just like that gentleman said right there, it's part of the Nuremberg Code. That is illegal even in the state of Pennsylvania. Also, the CDC, and this wasn't out in the news too much because I believe it was shot down within an hour, is considering allowing districts in the United States to quarantine students without parental consent. Ask me how legal that is. It's not. And this thing, A mask, this mask, all these masks you have out here, if you don't have an N95 on your face, you have no protection whatsoever. I work in retail. I unload these things, pardon me. I unload these things out of a box. What's the first thing that box says? Not recommended for protection of COVID-19. It doesn't work. So explain to me why the kids have to wear them if we all know well enough they don't work. Kids are supposed to build an immune system. How are they going to build an immune system when they're blocking their lungs? There is this disease out there called RSV. Has anybody really looked into reasons why RSV happens? Guess what? It's that mask. You're not getting proper air in your lungs. You're getting dirty air in your lungs. You're developing your lungs, lung infection. Now, there's some kids out there with COVID-19 in the hospital. I get it. But there's also kids at higher case with RSV. So, is this district worried about losing money from the state? I don't know why you would, because the state doesn't have any mandates. You're not going to lose no money if you go mask optional. Do you think Tom Wolf really cares what we do and think? He's worried about that money he's making. Where's that money coming from? We'd like to know. But I would like to know the same thing. 5 days after we had our last meeting, oh, masks are optional. Did you just say that to qualm us, to shut us up, to make us happy for 5 days? I'm starting to think that way. You're not the only school, though. All the schools are doing it, and it's a damn shame. Because now all these kids are going to suffer another year. We're worried about depression. We're worried about suicide. It's got to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilderson. Next up is Jesse Federici on when will mandates end?
I have no speech prepared, but I'm here for my kids. I got 3 of them. And I've heard tonight about choice. As a parent, my priority is always with them. It's not with anyone else's kids here. It's not with you. It's not your kids. It's my kids. And I'd like to know if you're going to mandate masks for COVID, let's say. Where since 2020, when it started, there's been 377 deaths among children between 0 and 17. That's 18 months. In the previous flu season, there was 474 in 12 months. So flu is way more deadly than COVID, and you all know this. I'm not going to, don't have to patronize us. You know this, you know the data. And yet we don't require masks for flu, right? Because there's vaccines. People can protect themselves. We can get on with our lives. This pandemic won't end until we make it end. It'll keep on going. If we keep fostering it, keep feeding into the fear, worried about minuscule numbers at this point, quite frankly. There's vaccines that can protect most people. And this is a school setting. This is not a workplace where all adults. Kids are very much not susceptible to this, as you all know. I have one thing I want to just point out from the pandemic of 1918, which most of us don't know anything about, but it should offer lessons to this one. In a small town in Idaho, they required masks for the entire population, indoors and out, and it was followed very thoroughly. And the cases are 2.5 times what the average national average was for cases there. So the masks then, just like now, like he pointed out a minute ago, unless you're wearing an N95, these things don't do anything. And for kids wearing it like this, like that, over and over again, it's actually potentially worse, okay? But this town for 15 days had a mandate. After 15 days, they removed it, and people were acting like they had their freedom back. We've been doing this for a year and a half. When does this end? Is it going to be our life from now on? Is that what we want? Have some common sense. You guys are in charge of this. Those state mandates requiring you to do any of this stuff anymore. That stuff's long gone from last year. You're responsible to us and the kids that go to school. Have a little backbone. The CDC is not a governing agency. It's an advisory committee. They don't mandate anything. You guys do. We do. our elected officials do. So grow some backbones, make the right decisions for the children, not for the teachers, and we'll see how we can get through this together as a group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Federici. Next up is Bill Whitney on Health and Safety Plan.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Campbell, parents, family members, community members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I promise I'll keep this brief. As some of you know, I'm actually a candidate standing for election to the East Penn School Board this year. I think I still am. Because of that, as you can imagine, I've done quite a bit of thinking about my position on these various issues related to the ongoing pandemic. I've come to a couple of very obvious conclusions, one of which is that the best answers to the most difficult questions are never found on social media platforms, any of them. Second one is that I am not a medical expert, and I don't play one on social media. And there's a third point about everyone having opinions and something else, and I'll leave that one unsaid. And these are all important things to keep in mind. But I'm running for school board because I see it as a public good to serve the children of East Penn, and by extension, their parents and families, and all the members of the community to work shoulder to shoulder together to make a safe and accepting and stimulating and forward-thinking educational environment. But the most critical word in that entire sentence is public. We're talking about public education and public health. By nature of those concepts, there will never be solutions to really vexing problems that serve every individual's full needs. It's not possible. It goes against the nature of being in a community together. So what we need are solutions that satisfy the duty of care that's inherent in the position of school boards and school administrators and teachers and staff that take care of the most while ensuring that potential harm is minimized. And I believe that's what you've achieved through this particular masking regulation. And there's ample evidence, if you're willing to see it, that there is that masks, to state it simply, minimize danger and harm and maximize safety. Again, that's minimize and maximize. It's not 0% and 100%. There are no 100% solutions. But I support you all as board members, and I believe that you're acting in the best interest of the public. And I know you all share my hope that this community and others can put this particular pandemic behind us someday soon, while we also learn the lessons that we should have learned, including the number one lesson that we hope all of our children learn, which is that ultimately we are responsible to each other. And I think you are modeling that for the students and families of East Penn by making these difficult decisions and stewarding our district through this pandemic. So I just want to say for that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitney. Next up is Marcus Denke on mask mandate.
Hi, my name is Mark. I'm from Emmaus. My family is from Emmaus. That includes some young children who are coming up through the East Penn School District, as well as some members that are at higher risk. And I just want to say thank you very much for your decision on the mask mandate. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denke. Next up is Eileen McGuire on critical thinking.
This is the East Penn School District mission statement. We foster a community in which students become effective problem solvers, collaborators, critical thinkers, and communicators, unquote. Masks. Although they have become political, I have no interest in the politics of masks. I have a very keen interest in applying critical thinking to the efficacy of masks, the cost-benefit of masks, and the risk-return of masks. This is not March 2020, when we lacked for good data upon which to base our decisions. We have 15 months of global, national, and local experience and no shortage of quality studies to look at and evaluate before determining policy. Why did I quote the East Penn School District mission statement? The mission of creating critical thinkers is essential, yet I'm not sure how we can claim to be pursuing that goal when we adopt a mandatory mask policy that is not supported by true scientific studies. If we want to fulfill the mission of developing critical thinkers, let's take the first 2 weeks of school and have students and science departments explore the following subjects. What positive effects do masks provide? What negative effects do masks present? Do the positives greatly outweigh the negatives, and are we including the social costs and benefits? At what risk from the virus is the 18 and under age group? How does that compare to other causes of death, such as from driving, suicide, flu, and unintentional injuries, such as from sports? Our immune systems being critical to fighting any virus, what actions can people take to boost their immune systems? What are the usual steps and usual time frames for developing and approving vaccines? What are the risks from the vaccine to the 18 and under age group? What countries and states can be used to compare and contrast responses and results of the virus pandemic? Additionally, we live in the Lehigh Valley, the home of air products. Perhaps there are scientists, chemists, engineers there who could tell us a thing or two about airborne particles. We are also home to 2 very robust hospital systems. I would say we could explore the efficacy of masks with some doctors and nurses, but I suspect the politics of masks would prevent an honest expression due to the fear of losing one's job, just as teachers in the East Penn School District are afraid of losing their jobs. However, I'm sure we could get a doctor to talk about supplements to support the immune system. If we are to develop critical thinkers, we cannot model the just following orders mentality that crushes thinking, diminishes creativity, and bullies people into obedience. We will not look back with pride on the policies we have implemented and the damage we are doing to the children we claim to be caring for and educating. Use the school's resources and the publicly available information to encourage the critical thinking we claim to desire. Demand honest answers based on the scientific method, free from politics, free from social pressure, and free from fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Next up is Steve Christopoulos on masks.
Said that very well. Not many people can get that last name the first shot.
Thank you.
Forgive me, I put my glasses on, getting too old. Contrary to the dogma that has taken root in American society, there is simply no scientific substantiation for the claim that masks, as they are worn in everyday life, protect either the wearer or those they encounter. Evidence from clinical trials that evaluate whether surgical and cloth masks protect the wearer establishes that these masks offer next to no protection because respiratory viruses like COVID-19 typically travel on particles so small that in order to provide protection, the material must be fine enough to catch nearly all aerosols and droplets. This echoes what the gentleman before me said. So, in conclusion, these things are all useless for what you think they're doing, because they're not doing what you think they're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Christopoulos. Next up is Amber Clark on masks.
Good evening. I'm from Allentown. My daughter is best friends with a girl who attends the East Penn School District. And I wanted to thank you for the mandate from a neighboring school district. The mandate impacts more than just East Penn. It impacts those that the children and relatives of East Penn choose to socialize with and where they spread. My sister-in-law has cerebral palsy. She's microcephalic, which means her head is abnormally small, which caused her to have epilepsy. And she also has dysphagia, which means she can't swallow and she's a feeding tube. She is incredibly immune compromised. and we help my mother-in-law care for her. When my daughter spends time with her best friend from the East Penn School District, we are counting on you as decision makers, protecting the children and the families of these children that attend this school, to protect others that don't attend. Anytime my sister-in-law even gets a cold, she gets admitted to the hospital because she can't cough, because she lays in a bed. So I would, in addition to thanking you, I would also encourage everyone here to please think beyond your fence, beyond your home, beyond your kitchen, and also beyond your classroom, and think about how the decisions that you choose to support affect those that are around you, and even those that are not in your immediate vicinity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Next up is Heather Harlan on universal masking.
Hi, school board and Superintendent Campbell. Thank you for having public commentary tonight. It's important that we're all heard, but it also needs to be understood that just because you're heard doesn't necessarily mean what you have to say should be acted on. I live in Emmaus, so I'm a community member with loved ones who go to schools around the district. I'm also a veteran public school teacher. And I want to first acknowledge some things I heard from my neighbors in here. Anxiety, children's anxiety, I get it. 100%, I feel for your children. I also took to heart what one of my neighbors said about needing mask breaks. And I really hope that's something that the school board will be sure to work into their plan, making sure that students have opportunities for mask breaks and not just at lunch. I also want to say that the Delta variant has changed everything. I've heard a lot of my neighbors cite research from before the 27th of July. Everything changed the 27th of July. And I want to thank you, Superintendent Campbell, for standing strong in that. It is important that we follow science and we protect all of our children. I also want to speak tonight about the DEIB initiatives in the school district. So for people who don't know, DEIB, D is for diversity, I is for inclusion, E is for equity, I is for inclusion, and I've also heard it as B for belonging. The B is really, really important. It's Hispanic Heritage Month coming up soon. So I hope that the school district is planning events to support and celebrate our many Latinx students and families. I also heard that the Panorama survey was released, and that was a DEIB survey, and that it was released to staff and to staff. So I'm wondering when you're going to release that to the district. I hope someone can get back to me about that, when you're going to release it to the community. And then I'm going to end on two things that made me a little sad to hear. Okay, I have 47 seconds. So I heard two things happened at orientations last week. One is that community members took pictures of pride flags in a school and out of context said, look, they have pride, and they posted them on social media saying they have pride flags, but not American flags in their classrooms. Taking that out of context. Also that I was informed that a teacher removed a mask for just a quick little break. Someone took a picture of it and then said, look, even the teachers don't agree with the masking policy. And I hope that we as a community can do better than that for each other. Like Dr. Reverend Greg Edwards says, a civil rights leader here in the Lehigh Valley, it's all of us or none of us. Even those of us who disagree with each other, we have to listen to each other, but being heard is not the same as action.
Harlan, can you finish up, please? Can you just calm down? I've given people a chance to finish up their comments.
Thank you so much for your time. I seem to have struck some chords, and that's a good thing. Thank
you, Ms. Harlan. Next up is Rosie Hilbert, optional mask for high school.
Hello, my name is Rosie. I'm from Macungie, and I have 2 children at the high school. I have to admit, I wanted to stay home tonight and give up because I feel like nothing matters anymore, but many of my teacher friends in the East Penn School District encouraged me to come out here and speak, my husband, and I wanted to show my kids that I will stand up and fight for them. I am 100% against my children coming to school with a mask on. Both my kids are vaccinated and my husband and I are vaccinated, and we should not have to wear masks. I wanted to take a different approach and urge you to do the same. I would like you to take the emotion out of your speech, and anyone here, I heard a lot of emotion at the last board meeting, and look at the facts, the actual numbers, not things like uptick, drastic, catastrophic. All those words mean differently to different people. Keep other cities and states out of what is actually happening in our county, Lehigh County, not Alabama, not Florida, not Texas, not California, or Philly for that matter. We are not them. In the Lehigh County, we've had 40,000 cases of COVID. Out of those 40,000, 875 people have died of COVID, and 508 people, to be exact, were in nursing homes. In Pennsylvania, 1 million people had contracted COVID. And if you look on the PA Department of Health website, which those are facts, the graph for children ages 10 to 19 who died, there was no numbers. No numbers. Does that mean zero? There was no numbers. There was numbers for 20 to 29, 30 to 39, no numbers. Currently, there is not one child at St. Luke's Hospital with COVID. I was able to find out information that with the new variant, fewer than 1% of sick kids are in the ICU, need the ICU. In Lehigh County, in the hospitals, right now there's 91 people with COVID. In ICU, there is 22 people and there's 159 beds available. There are 10 people on ventilators and there's 229 ventilators available. Our teachers have had the chance to get vaccinated if they want to. Our children, ages 12 to 17, have gotten the chance to get vaccinated if they want to. We have spent almost an entire year and a half fighting a battle, a situation that is trying to control a situation that is not controllable. My husband and I will not let our children wear masks anywhere outside of school and outside of doctor's offices. They are not allowed to wear masks. And there are many kids who spent the entire summer, all of spring, indoors, outdoors, before school, after school, without masks on. They will continue to do that. You will never slow this disease down, never. Because the second these kids get out of school, they will rip the masks off, they will get in the cars, they will be at Wawa without a mask on, they will be at sleepovers.
Excuse me,
And
Ms.
so many
Hilbert,
people,
your time is,
so many people
finish up.
are so hypocritical. Mask, 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 but the second it's the weekend or the second it's night, they're out at restaurants, they're out with their friends with no masks on. I
Thank
think
you.
I
Thank you,
have
Ms.
lost the
Hilbert.
mask battle for now, but I hope and pray you will revisit this on a monthly basis and change your mind.
Thank you, Ms. Halbert. Next up is Teresa Hagel on in support of mask mandate.
Hi, I'm Teresa Hagel. I'm a parent in the East Penn School District, and I just wanted to thank the board and the superintendent for doing the mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hagel. Next up is Madeline Hess on masking in schools.
Hello, my name is Madeline Hess and I'm a rising junior at Emmaus High School. I would like to preface by saying that I am here of my own accord and not by my parents' will. Thank you for your time and service to our community. I appreciate your decision to mandate masks, as many other school districts have done this past week. Science tells us that masks matter, so thank you. I think it is worth saying that I do not enjoy wearing masks. However, my genuine dislike for putting a piece of clothing over my mouth bears no weight against that of another's life. I would like the chance to meet my peers, my teachers, and hopefully hold a library book in my hands this coming year. And mandating masks will make all of those small but special events happen for me and everyone else. I have not been in school since March of my freshman year. As I said, I am now a junior. I don't want to miss the rest of my high school experience, and masks will allow me to be in high school. As of August 12th, 2021, the American Academy of Pediatrics reported that children made up 18% of the overall COVID cases. That was a 5% increase from the 2 weeks previous, and it will continue to rise. Masking in school will help to mitigate the rising numbers of cases, as well as postpone and ideally eliminate school closures. Masks do not prohibit a child's ability to learn. Not being able to go to school does. I also believe it is my job as a student to help protect my peers that cannot get the vaccine or cannot wear a mask for medical reasons during school. It appears to me that our collective goal as students, teachers, parents, and staff of the East Penn School District is to keep the school open all year as safely as possible in order to give every single student the best opportunity that we can to learn. Masks will help us achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hess. Next up is Dr. Chris Spidelieri on masking.
Hello, I'm Dr. Christopher J. Spidelieri. I live at 2060 Goldenrod Drive, Macungie. I'd like to start by saying we're all in this together, but I wish that were true. The truth is that you're in it together. You're not with us. Okay, from backroom deals between the teachers' unions and the CDC, working to keep our kids out of schools last year, to backroom deals between superintendent and LVHN to dictate school policy this year. LVHN receives tons of federal money because of COVID and stands to make much more when the vaccines and likely annual boosters are mandated. Does this have any impact on their decision-making process? Is this a conflict of interest? Is masking no more than just a marketing scheme to drum up support for vaccinations? Okay. I've been a stakeholder in the public school system for 10 years. I volunteered as a parent. I've served on the school board. I've heard teachers brag about how much they care about our children. I've heard them boast about how hard they work. I've also seen them refuse to allow our children to attend school in person last year because of a disease slightly more dangerous than the flu. Okay, they're not in it for us. The teachers' unions are not in it for us. They're not in it for our kids. Okay, at first, I respected the board's decision to keep masking optional. To this day, I haven't seen any conclusive evidence that masks really do anything to stop the spread of SARS-CoV-2, but I still respect people's right to wear one if it makes them feel comfortable. 2 weeks ago, I emailed the superintendent's office asking whether the mask mandate would be reinstated. I wanted to know so I can make a decision whether to seek options outside of the public schools. The superintendent's office referenced the board's decision, and that was all. You know, shortly after, as others said, they unilaterally enforced a mask mandate through an email. Okay, and that left my family no time to make any alternate choice. Basically, what they did was they ran out the clock and then they changed the rules. Okay, they were in it with the teachers' unions and LVHN. They weren't in it with us. Okay, after seeing this, I realized that the board passed the buck. Okay, you gave your power to make decisions to an unelected bureaucrat. Okay, for all you board members who got elected to represent us, you don't really represent us right now. Okay, EPSD, you're not in it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spidelieri. Next is Felicia Kennedy on COVID and masks.
Good evening. My name is Felicia Kennedy. I'm a resident of Lower Macungie. My husband and I have 4 children. Our 2 oldest will be entering 2nd grade and kindergarten next week at West Coesville. I stand in front of you today as a mother fighting for her children's freedom, fighting for her children's future. I stand with the thousands of angry parents across Pennsylvania. You sit here and you tell us your concern is for our children. It's for their safety. If that was true, you'd be following the studies that show the dangers of keeping our children muzzled. You'd be following the studies that show our kids are not greatly affected by COVID-19. If you cared about our children, you would have implemented mask policies for the flu season, which during the roughly 3 to 4 month peak in 2019-2020 had 199 children pass away from. If your concern was, and that's from the CDC's website, if your concern was for our children, you would know that one of the top 3 causes of death to children between the ages of 5 to 14 in the United States is suicide. Furthermore, you would know that during the strict COVID mandates, suicide, depression, and other mental health disorders increased drastically among our youth. But let's mask them up, take away all their personal connections with peers, because there's a 0.03% chance that they could die. What are you doing to our children? My daughter walked off the school bus last year, and I knew something was wrong with her. I said, honey, what is wrong? Well, I had a bad day. What happened? Well, during the rain, when it was really coming down hard, I got off the school bus, and one of the school bus attendants ran, startled me. She said scared her, and yelled for sharing an umbrella with our neighbor. That is not okay. Have you thought for 1 second the lasting effects that your outlandish policies have on our children? I want you to know that not only are you making the decisions for these students K through 12, but your decisions are also affecting the hundreds of children attending preschool programs throughout your school district and the state of Pennsylvania, as most of them follow in your footsteps. My 4.5-year-old daughter, Avery, will be starting kindergarten during the 2022-2023 school year. She has had to mask up for the last year. In December 2020, right before turning 4 and 9 months into COVID, she was officially diagnosed with childhood apraxia of speech. If you're unfamiliar with the diagnosis, it's a severe speech disorder where her brain has difficulty sending messages to her mouth muscles in order to make intelligible language. She has a concrete understanding of language and what she wants to say, but simply cannot form the words. For the last 18 months, she has had to have telehealth therapy through the IU. Try getting a 3 or 4-year-old on Zoom for 30 minutes. It doesn't happen. This is a critical time in her development, and simply put, you and your politically motivated policies are stopping her from succeeding.
Ms. Kennedy, you have.
I have my bachelor's in criminal justice with a minor in psychology where I focused on childhood development. Masking our children is the very definition of child abuse. You already know that, and you
Ms.
don't seem
Kennedy.
to care. I will not sit back and willfully comply while you ruin our future generations, and I think that I have a backing in the majority of
Ms.
the
Kennedy, your time has expired.
Thank you so much.
Next up is Christopher Prosisk. Prezo? Sorry.
I want to thank you guys for everything you do and for listening to me tonight. I have 4 children, 3 of them in this school district. 2 of them went through this school district, and they're amazing individuals, and you guys are a huge part of that. I have one who's going to be in high school next year, or this year, and he hasn't been to school in 2 years. At the end of last year, we find out that children with an IEP can come to school. Nobody ever offered it to us. We stumbled across it when we were talking to my sister, who's a teacher in a different school district. We get Preston back into school. Never had headaches. Every other day, we had to keep him home, and he would go remote because the days he was in school wearing a mask, he had a terrible headache. Okay, we can get a medical exemption. He's in there without a mask. What's special about an exempted kid's germs and somebody else's germs. Somebody wearing a mask. If there's already people in school that aren't wearing a mask, whether they're exempt or not, they still have the germs. They're still touching other people. Underneath this mask, these germs are there. When I walk outside and I scrub my beard, I touch my shirt, I come into school, I sit down in a chair, my germs are on the chair. The next kid who's wearing a mask sits in that chair, touches his shirt, he's home, touches his mouth, the germs are there. It's a foolish policy. I understand that you want to protect our children. I'm asking you, if it was you, is your family more important than my family? Because I will be brutally honest, and I'm saying this as respectfully as I can, my family is more important to me than your family. I will protect my family. You can protect yours. That's where the choice comes in. We should all have a choice. You wear a mask to protect yourself from germs. You hurt your immune system. Your immune system needs germs to get stronger. That's a fact. I'm not a doctor, I'm a mechanic. Okay? Mechanics have amazing immune systems. We touch everybody's car. I have 4,000 customers, and I have not contracted COVID. My family, fortunately, they get to share those germs with me, and their friends, and their family. I have 7 people that work with me, and their families, no COVID. We've had a very close friend of ours die from COVID. It can be lethal, yes. The mask is going to be a perpetual, I don't know. This is going to keep happening if we keep mandating masks. Every time it gets bad, we put the mask back on. People's immune system gets weaker, the numbers go down because they're wearing the mask. They take the mask off, the numbers go back up. Until we have a choice and we let things go, people's immune systems need to get stronger. I appreciate your time, and hopefully you take into what I said into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prezio. Next up is Joe Hensler on role of board and administration and the importance of in-person education.
Hi, my name is Joe Hensler. Raised 3 sons here at East Penn School District, so very a part of this community. I'm also a pastor in Lower Macungie Township of a pretty large congregation. Please don't cheer. It's a broken hospital for people that are crazy like me. I understand the difficulty of leading with thousands of people and lots of staff. It is complex. It is hard. So I respect what you have to do. I also know that my purpose as a pastor is to care for the spiritual needs of people as the primary role. It is not to eliminate risk. Your role as a board and administrators is to educate our children, not to eliminate risk. Last year, our family contracted COVID-19, all 5 of us, through the East Penn School District. Contact tracing showed that it came through East Penn School District. I hold no one here at fault. Our family took a risk. You had great protocols. Everything was safe. Everyone that has a choice to get a vaccination can get a vaccination. But our kids, my kids, need in-person education. It's not a want, it's a need. And I feel as though often we as a community wait for these monthly meetings twice a month, and we are waiting and wondering if this board is going to pivot from the administration's recommendations. Last year we experienced that. Would you as a board stay in your lane? Would you allow the administrators to lead? And my questions for you as a board are, where are we going to be when this pandemic is over? Our schools are overcrowded. What are you doing about it? We are not going to be one of the greatest districts in Pennsylvania if this board focuses on tactical issues that are delegated to the administration. I believe the administration wants what's best for our kids. I believe the vast majority of teachers want our kids in school. And for us to come here at night and find you change and pivot the direction is wrong. Please stay in your lane, allow the administrators to administrate, and look forward into the future. Where are we going to be as an East Penn School District 20 years from now? Who's answering that question now? That's your responsibility. Would you please lead us forward?
Thank you, Mr. Hensler. Next up is Richard Musselman on COVID decision.
Good evening. I am Richard Musselman, resident of Emmaus since 1986. I am glad that East Penn is committed as a district to have in-person instruction. There is no substitute for the in-person interactions between the teacher and the learner. The health and safety of the entire school community is a top priority. The decision to require all students, staff, and visitors to wear masks indoors at all the school buildings and on school buses, regardless of vaccination status, is a most prudent decision. The goal is to keep all students and staff safe. I commend, laud, and support this wise decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Musselman. Next is Joyce Moore on health and safety plan or policy.
Hi, my name is Joyce Moore, and I live in Upper Milford Township. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to tell you thank you. Thank you for caring. Thank you for serving. Thank you for thoughtfully considering the safety of our students and our teachers. Thank you for the work that you do for East Penn School. I really care about the students and the teachers and the staff of our school district, and I know you do too, and I'm grateful. I know this has been a tough time, and I'm a township supervisor, so I know how hard it is when you're in a situation where not everybody in the room agrees with you, but you're listening attentively, and I know you care, and I'm grateful for that. I think masks are a good idea because I think that science has proven that it makes our kids safer, makes our teachers safer. Some kids can't get vaccines yet. We have to do what we can to keep them safe. Thank you for doing the best you can. I believe science is important. I was a daughter of two scientists. My mother was a pharmacist. My father was a chemical engineer. The scientific method teaches us that we learn more the more information we get. The more information we get, we make better decisions, just the way it works. I know you're taking more information in, and I appreciate all you're doing. Thank you. I just want to say one more thing, and I don't know how to say this nicely, and I hope it comes out nicely because I mean it with the best of intentions. My faith tradition tells me to love my neighbor, and I haven't heard a lot of that tonight, and I wish that we would all consider that. Please love your neighbors.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore. Next is Anita Namath on potential for tiered mitigation plan and options for closure.
Sorry. I don't have anything prepared. I'm extremely nervous, and I'm not going to go into anything that everyone else has already discussed. I want to thank the board and the administration for making the decision. I believe that even if the masks prevent one case, it's worth it. Quite honestly, my only question is, and I understand that this was a last-minute decision, as more information comes out, we tend to make last-minute decisions. The other districts have all made last-minute decisions and all have plans, most of which include some level of masking. Bethlehem, Parkland, who we tend to follow, even the charter school that 7 area districts send to, all include some level of masking. My only question is there an opportunity or is there a possibility? Is the district working on a tiered, depending on where spread goes? And I haven't heard anything, and I don't even want to bring it up because, quite honestly, the kids do really well and need to be in school. Do we have any options if that changes, beside FESPA, obviously? We don't want to close. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Namath. Next is Noreen Yamamoto in support of masks.
My name is Noreen Yamamoto. I'm a resident of the school district. My daughter graduated a couple of years ago and is now a student at DeSales College, University. I work in healthcare, and I know the mask, I don't know, for women, I think it's a little bit like a bra. It's not very comfortable, but I wear it for you, not for me. But I want to thank you for your thoughtful approach to this. I think it's been a very difficult year for this whole country. And I know I thank you as citizens for committing yourselves to serving on the school board and being willing to be out there and take the hits. I think this pandemic isn't going to go away lightly if we don't mask and take whatever precautions we can, like vaccinations. Working behind the scenes in healthcare, that's the way what we're seeing more surges. So I thank you for your thoughtful approach, and I thank you for listening to all the opinions tonight. And I would like to make a call for civility. At the beginning of this, I think we all said the pledge together that we're under God and indivisible, and I hope we remember that and that we are all neighbors and we should love our neighbor. So I hope everybody goes home and still remembers that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yamamoto. Next is Haley Forrest on masks.
Hi, my name is Haley First, and I'm in 7th grade. I think masks should be optional because I would like to see people's faces, especially teachers' faces. I have anxiety, and it is so much better for me when I'm able to see adults' faces. I was able to see their faces over the summer, and it was great. I have a mask exemption, but I still feel the parents should be able to make the choices, not the schools. Maybe give the teachers clear masks instead, so it will help kids like me. I just want things to go back to normal, and I think most of you here want that too. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Ms. Forrest. Next is Megan Forrest on masking.
Good evening. My name is Megan First. I live in Emmaus, and I have children in multiple East Penn buildings. First, I want to say that many parents are upset, including myself, but I will never threaten or wish harm on any of you, just because of a matter of a difference of opinion. If what being said on public social media blogs from board members and are supposed threats and harassment, etc., then file a police report and show video proof. If not, stop posting about it online with zero proof, because then it just becomes a he said, she said situation. That's all I'm going to say on that matter. March 12th, 2020 was the last normal school day. As of today, it has been 529 days. 529 days. How much longer? Seriously, how much longer are you going to have this continue? This is the third school year this crap is going on, and based on the email last week with the frequently asked questions, there's no end in sight. Enough is enough. The end of the 1920 school year was obviously unlike anything any of us have experienced. East Penn did the best they could with computer distribution, lunches, etc. Then the 2020-2021 school year began, for some. Buildings were closed, Zooms weren't working, materials were not given properly, and hybrid was a joke, especially for cohort B students that were barely there. For my children specifically, worksheets took weeks to be given to. Classes were constantly either closed for quarantine or they were pointless to be even in because there was zero work being done. Masks with no clear shield windows were worn during speech therapy, so my child could not see the therapist's mouth as she taught articulation of speech. Let that thing sink in. Speech therapy had no clear masks. The school cared more about hand sanitizer or keeping kids separated from friends than they did of true safety issues like anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, or making sure special needs individuals didn't end up walking on Cedar Crest alone with no staff members being aware. Our children are being raised in fear, and the school is sadly not helping with that. They're in fear of being around other individuals, aka social distancing, fear of viruses in general, or fear of the air they breathe. They must mask immediately. The psychological damage being done is irreversible. Last year, and more so this summer, people went back to their normal lives. Many of the 1,000+ staff members of East Penn spent time on vacations, some multiple vacations. They spent time with friends and family, barbecues, birthdays, concerts, and even places like Music Fest, all maskless. And once again, we live in a world of social media, so what I just said can 100% be proven. East Penn had orientations in multiple buildings last week and all were mask optional. And based on the pictures from friends and also East Penn, about 80 to 90% were maskless. But a few hours later, freedom of choice was taken away. I will end with this last bit from a quote from Ronald Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on to them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was like in the United States where men were free, end quote. My rights were granted by the Constitution and my creator above, not this school board. I do not co-parent with you, so stop
Ms.
making medical
Forrest,
decisions
you need to
for
finish
my
up.
family, except for yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forrest. Next is Anthony Cusimano on social studies textbook.
Good evening. I'm here as a concerned taxpayer. I don't have children, did not have children in the school district. I made a request at the last board meeting for curriculum. I received a response from Superintendent Campbell. Thank you. I also made a request for a 9th grade textbook, and I'm wondering if there is such a thing as a 9th grade textbook. Or if it's all online. I am not up on what's going on with textbooks particularly, but I would like to have a textbook to compare, to sit down with the curriculum and look at the curriculum with respect to the textbook. Is that a possibility? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cusimano. Next is Pan Schiaffo on mass choice, not mandate.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Pam Schiaffo. I will try to make this brief. My husband and I had 5 children go through the East Penn School District, and now our grandchildren attend the East Penn School District, which makes this very personal for me. First, I'd like to ask all of you on the board, do any of you have a degree in education? Do any of you have a degree in psychology? Do any of you have a medical degree, either as with pediatrics or with adults? I'll get back to you and address your answers shortly. Our children are now being raised in fear. Fear of each other, fear of the world, fear of illnesses, viruses, and even the air that they breathe. They are being taught to fear everything. Prolonged fear is terror, and terror becomes trauma. The psychological damage being done is irreversible. Tell me again how this virus escaped a level 4 biolab, but you're going to stop it with your homemade daisy print mask. Forced vaccines and medical treatment are a direct violation of the Nuremberg Code. Remember that. Read history before it's erased and do your job and let the parents decide what is medically right for their children. I've seen so many photos of school teachers and staff and board members at the beach, on vacation, just recently at Music Fest, bowling parties, at the bars, etc., on social media. All with no masks and no social distancing. And that's not just from this year, that's from last year also. If you are afraid, which I'm sure you're really not, but if you are, then get another job or go hide in your basement. I'd like to get back to your answer from the first question, my first questions. I saw no hands go up of any of you that are medical doctors on this school board. You are not a medical board. You are a school board. Do your job.
Thank you, Ms. Schiaffo. Next is Robert Ruggieri on mask policy. I'll forward to Hatsu Santiago. Oh, wait, there's this, yeah.
Hi, my name is Hatsia Santiago. I live in West Coesville with my 3 kids. I have one in the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. I'm here tonight to beg you to reconsider mandating masks for this upcoming school year for our children. Our children wearing masks all day long is absolutely dangerous to their health and not effective. If anything, they have more contact with germs having a mask on versus not wearing one. Isn't it well known that once you touch your mask, it's supposed to be changed, as I'm touching my mask right now? How many times do you think these kids touch their masks every day in school? All day long. All day. And even us as adults, I've seen everybody standing up here touch their mask. And you can't help it. You move it around, whatever. Sorry. So obviously I know that I certainly do touch my mask when I'm forced to wear it, and I have to. In situations like this, I will comply, but I absolutely end up touching my mask, not intentionally, just because it moves down my face, whatever, so that I'm not wearing it properly. But you know, when you have your touch your mask, you're supposed to change it, right? And if we're touching our masks all day long, these kids are not changing their masks. Obviously, they have an extra mask in their backpack. My daughter has 1 or 2, but she's not changing it. that would really be impossible to do. So let's think about it this way. If they're touching everything, all kinds of surfaces all day long, all these things have a plethora of germs all over them, which is fine because that would build up our herd immunity, okay? And all of these things, they're directly putting them on their masks when they're touching it, when it's covering their mouths. So obviously, whatever I'm touching, I'm breathing in. I ask you, how does this make any sense at all? Not to mention when the kids get their mask breaks, where are they putting their masks? They're putting them on their desk. And sometimes they fall on the floor, and then they're putting them right back on their face. Of course, they shouldn't be doing it, and they should get a new mask, but let's be real, they're kids, and it happens more times than not. How is that safe? It's counterproductive and harmful. And what about all the pathogens that are on these masks from wearing them all day? If they're sneezing, coughing, etc., masks are trapped.
Excuse me, can you finish up?
Yes. So basically, it's just not healthy, and masks should be optional, not mandatory, and we need to be able to decide for our children and our families what is right for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Santiago. Next is Scarlett's on masks.
Hi. My name is Scarlett Santiago, and I don't think that we should have to wear masks. I am 10 years old and in 5th grade, and I don't think that we should have to wear masks because they are very uncomfortable. It makes it hard for me to focus, and at school, at lunch, I sit next to my best friend, and when I'm done eating, I have to put my mask back on, and that's really uncomfortable, and it's hard for me to breathe and focus because of the mask being on, because it's just hard to breathe. And that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Santiago. Next is Evan S. on masks.
Dear East Penn Board, my name is Evan S. I live in Emmaus, PA with my mom and dad. I'm going into 5th grade at East Penn School. I think masks could be optional because masks get hot and sticky. It makes me feel like I am captured and I'm stuck in it. It makes me feel tired and I don't get to see people's faces and smiles. I want to see my friends and teachers' smiles. My glasses get so foggy too, and then I can't see. It's hard to breathe when I go up 3 flights of stairs with my heavy backpack with a mask on, or after recess or gym when I am tired. I'm out of breath, sweaty and red. Also, I get distracted a lot, and it's hard for me to focus on things. I really wish we could have a normal school year without masks and have it be optional for us. I think you make masks optional, you will make everyone happy. Please think about it. It is really bothers me and other kids. Thank you for having me and letting me speak to all of you.
Thank you, Evan. And that's it. That concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. Moving on to approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval of minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Excuse me, we're done with the public comment portion. This isn't where you have a meeting to run. Not during this part of the meeting. This is not an interactive. Mrs. Allen, will you call for the, will you read the roll call?
Ms. Bowman? Aye. Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
Dr. Munson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Winch? Aye. Dr. Bacher?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Motion passes. Next order for business is the district update. Mrs. Campbell?
Good evening. As always, we sincerely appreciate the public comment and recognize, I'm going to say both, but probably all sides of the issue with regard to masking. And in particular, I just wanted to tell my friend Evan in the audience that I too can appreciate some of those inconveniences you feel about masks. And tonight my glasses have been steaming up like crazy. So I feel your pain with that one. I do appreciate as well that many community members this evening asked some critical questions, particularly in terms of the decision to require masks for the start of school for all students, staff, and visitors to our buildings. Specifically, there's questions about the timing of that decision, as well as the data points that I considered to make that decision. You are absolutely right. When there was a community member who mentioned that at the August 9th board meeting, I did share that at that time, there were no changes to the current plan or policy in place with regard to masking. You likely also recall, in terms of that communication that I shared at the public meeting on that evening, I very clearly articulated that there were several key factors that administration was continuing to monitor in terms of any changes to that decision with regard to masking. And those factors were level of community spread, or level of community transmission, I should say. And then the other factor was the vaccination opportunity. And so in terms of the timing of the decision, you likely also know that it was literally, I believe, August 10th, the next day, at which point Lehigh County shifted from what was substantial level of community transmission to high, which is then the highest level of community transmission, which is a county-wide or a CDC calculation. So when we talk about the timing, like certainly we were monitoring that level and the data points there. And then the other piece in terms of what actual data, so it is about the high level of transmission in which Lehigh County currently is. As you all know, and again, I know that I'm repeating probably something with which many of you are familiar. High level of community transmission looks at new cases per 100,000 residents. And certainly you can look at information on the COVID dashboard to know where we are right now in Lehigh County. It's 166.5 cases. The other data point that we look at is the PCR rate, which again, I can appreciate you're an educated audience, and so you recognize that that's at 9.2%. The other piece I will say that certainly played into our decision is updated CDC guidelines specific to contact tracing in our schools. The CDC includes an exception for kindergarten through 12th grade indoor classroom settings for students only. And that exception is that close contacts
exclude students who are within 3 to 6 feet of an infected student if both the infected student and the exposed student are masked. So I'm going to sort of unpack that a little bit for the audience, for our community, I should say. We know last year that there were many disruptions to our school day. We heard from a lot of parents the inconsistency was certainly a big disruption to our lives, most importantly to our children's education. If we had a student who was in our schools last year who was a positive COVID case, and we were very transparent with those cases, you could track them on our dashboard, you saw how many we had in each building. If we had a positive student and they were within 6 feet of any other student in the building at any point during the day, they were considered a close contact. And any close contacts had to be quarantined and excluded from school for a sustained period of time. That created substantial disruptions to kids' educational experiences. Again, the CDC has made adjustments to that, and they're now saying when students are masked, if we have a positive case, anyone with whom that student comes into contact, as long as they are masked, it's not considered a close contact. And again, that has to do with the science and what has been supported in terms of masking as a mitigation factor. So while in high level of community transmission, universal masking, we see it as a way in which we can really maximize students' in-person instruction and minimize to the greatest extent we can some of those disruptions that would happen from having to exclude students as being close contacts. I can appreciate as well that the question that's on a lot of minds, and you articulated this question tonight, is when, if at all, will the masking mandate change? Meaning we're currently requiring masks. When will that shift and potentially return to what's in the health and safety plan in terms of our original desire to be optional? We did release this past Friday an FAQ for our community. And certainly we will continue to add to that as we get questions. We will monitor community transmission rates, vaccination rates, and vaccination opportunities for children under 12. A shift to substantial level, again, we're currently in high, so a shift to substantial level of spread will prompt us to reconsider masking requirements at the high school level, because that is a level at which vaccination opportunity is available. So in terms of what that means is when we are no longer in the highest level of community transmission, we're certainly going to consider shifting back to optional at the high school. A shift to substantial level of spread, it is unlikely, I apologize, it is unlikely that we'll lift the masking mandate in grades K to 8 unless the county returns to moderate or low levels of spread, or until a vaccination becomes available for this population. So our masking guidelines are in place for now based on current conditions. And again, we're committed to continue to monitor those conditions and make changes that are in response to those. I can't emphasize enough that I personally, as well as I know our team and I believe the board, recognizes that this decision is disappointing. And I get that that's an understatement for parents. It's disappointing for some parents. It's disappointing for some students, some staff. And I assure you that our primary focus really is on the health and safety of our students and staff and returning them to in-person instruction 5 days a week consistently to the greatest extent possible. For now, we support masking as a mitigation that will help us to minimize the need for students to be excluded, again, because of that contact tracing that I described. And we also value public health recommendations, and I appreciate that they are that. Recommendations from the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, as well as a very transparent, healthy relationship that we have with local health officials, including medical doctors, pediatricians, epidemiologists from both health networks that are reputable in our area. Switching gears, I have a few reminders for the upcoming school year, one of which, I should say the first two relate to the East Penn Education Foundation. As a reminder, on Monday, October 4th, at the Brookside Country Club, the East Penn Education Foundation is sponsoring its first golf outing. I encourage any community members who are golfers to potentially take advantage of this great opportunity to support the foundation, which does many amazing things for the students. The second piece is on Wednesday, October 13th. The Education Foundation is sponsoring a career exploration fair. And so we encourage anyone to consider registering as an exhibitor for the 2021 fair. Just last week, we welcomed 36 new teachers at our annual new teacher induction. And I want to give a special thank you to our Office of Teaching and Learning for coordinating the event for our new staff members who will work with our students. And my final update for tonight is that our staff, our professional support staff, have returned this week for professional development and to finalize preparations for the first day of school. We are truly excited to have our 8,000 students joining us for in-person instruction on August 30th. And this is just a reminder to our students, if you've not yet started your summer reading list, you really should tackle that now. If you are accustomed to sleeping in, I encourage you to start trying to set the alarm before 8 a.m. Get out your backpacks, charge your technology, sharpen your pencils, because the first day of school is right around the corner and we cannot wait for you to arrive. I appreciate that maybe there are some who are really disappointed by the fact that you'll have masks on when you come to see us on the first day, but we have great things planned for you this school year and really are looking forward to seeing all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell. Are there any questions or comments? Ms. Bowman?
Thank you. For some reason, I don't have a microphone, so we're sharing. I do have a question. I think some people from the audience brought up a good point in that they do not trust board members and educators to be making what I'll call public health decisions. And while I understand we have a very close relationship with St. Luke's and LVHN, the decision-making has been somewhat opaque to the public. And actually, even the board hasn't had the opportunity to talk with these medical professionals. So what I'm wondering is if at some point in the future, we could have, even with the medical professionals that the administration has been in talks with, we've also heard from at least a dozen pediatricians, family physicians, all sorts, anesthesia. I can't remember all of the different professions they were working in who have children in the district who are very interested in helping to answer questions. For example, I don't think any of us can adequately answer the question that came up today about whether the PICU has pediatric cases in it, whether there's been any pediatric deaths. I think we really do need medical professionals in our area to help answer those questions from the public.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to personnel items. I'll entertain a motion for the personnel items, including the addendum and exhibits.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Mrs. Allen, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
Dr. Munson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Winch?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Dr. Bacher?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Motion passes. Moving on to business operations. If there are no objections, I'll entertain a motion to take items A through E together.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mrs. Allen, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
Dr. Munson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Winch?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Dr. Bacher?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Motions pass. Moving on to policy, I'll entertain a motion to take, actually, we should just go through them individually. We'll take up New policies, third reading and adoption. My understanding is there are no updates? Is
Correct.
that correct? Are there any comments or questions from the board? I guess I'll entertain a motion then to approve the new policies.
So moved. Second.
And no questions. Mrs. Allen, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Jankowski,
Aye.
Dr. Levinson,
Aye.
Dr. Munson,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Winch,
Aye.
Ms. Bowman,
Aye.
Mr. Byrd,
Aye.
Mr. Champagne,
Aye.
Dr. Bacher,
Aye.
9 ayes.
Motion passes. Moving on to social media accounts, I'll entertain a motion to approve the district accounts.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Munson.
Yeah, I just had one question, and it actually relates back to the question about the updated social media policy that I had before, which is that, so we have this list, and so the board approves it. What process is in place if a school, like not all the schools have the same thing exactly? Like what happens if Macungie decides it needs an Instagram account in the same way that Shoemaker has? Are we going to have to, will this come before the board then, each one of these individually to approve? Or is there a process that allows those things to be handled by the administration?
Under the policy. Under the policy, it has to come back before the board.
Okay. And, well, I guess this is the wrong agenda item to discuss it under. It should have been the previous one. But I mean, do you anticipate any problem with sort of keeping up with the sort of changing social media landscape, given the need to come to the board for any social media account?
I don't. I mean, and I believe if we see it being a problem in terms of shifting or changing social media accounts and the board not meeting frequently enough, then certainly we can bring that back to you possibly as a policy revision.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Dr. Levinson?
Just a quick question. How many people are involved with managing the social media accounts?
I didn't catch the full question. How many people are involved in?
In managing these accounts?
Typically at the building level, it would be building principals. I'm looking to Mr. Povolitis and/or one of the administrators. And I'll say the district one is absolutely Laura Grow, our community liaison.
Yeah, I can respond to that. When we were reviewing to determine exactly which accounts would fall on this list, we specifically reached out, and principals are typically oversees these accounts. There may also be advisors of certain clubs, and there's oftentimes delegation to some students that are in part of these clubs, and we discussed that with Mr. Fisher.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I've got a question.
Mr. Jankowski.
For the IR Facebook account, it has the former principal's name on it. Is that a wise move?
That will obviously have to be changed.
So should we not vote on that today?
I think that one will be in effect until for at least the next month, and so potentially any changes could be addressed at a later board meeting.
Would it be possible to approve a new name for that along with this?
I'm trying to see how it reads.
It's M. Kelly at East Penn.
I think at this point, I think it's more important that you're approving the actual account itself versus the person in charge of the account. That can always be, the person in charge can always be handled administratively.
I guess going back to Dr. Munson's question earlier, we're approving a Facebook account. Are you suggesting that what we call the Facebook account does not necessarily need approval, or?
No, I'm saying you're needing approval, for example, the Iyer Middle School Facebook account.
It has M. Kelly in the name of it.
I understand that that'll be, but it has him as being the overseer of the account. It's the account itself that's important for purposes of passing this, of acting on this motion. The account name will obviously need to be changed.
Okay.
I get, to continue with my question, then I get, why are we using a name, an individual's name for IRE when the others are, you know, school acronym or school name?
Potentially, it was just the way that account was set up initially. When the IRE principal initially set up the IRE Facebook account, that was how it was set up.
I mean, I would recommend we go to the school name to be consistent, so we don't have this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And
I just talked with Laura Groh, who oversees all the accounts, and it was set up by the individual. And then that account just kept that name. So it currently is a district account as it stands now. Moving forward, that would change.
okay. Dr. Munson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to approve it as it is. It seems reasonable, but it does go to the previous point that like things shift. And so I do hope you'll monitor this. And if you have to be constantly coming back to the board, right, with changes in names and so forth, then maybe we could adjust the policy a little to just streamline that a bit.
Any other comments or questions? Mrs. Allen, will you call the roll, please?
Dr. Levinson,
Aye.
Dr. Munson,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Wint,
Aye.
Ms. Bowman,
Aye.
Mr. Byrd,
Aye.
Mr. Champagne,
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski,
Aye.
Dr. Bacher.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Motion passes. We come to the second reading of an updated policy. I understand there are changes for this policy. Dr. Provolitis?
That's correct. So I'll highlight a few. Dr. Bacher did share with us in advance of this meeting, but after the agenda was out, some suggested language change. So I'll just briefly go through that with the board. The suggestion was to add a definition sections in this policy. The definitions would be immediate family member, extended family member, direct supervisor, and chain of supervision. I'm happy to read the definitions if you would like me to. Additionally, he's proposing changes to paragraphs 3 through 6 on page 3 of 5 of the policy. On paragraph 3, on page 3 of 5, that starts with no candidate. His suggestion is just a slight change in language to no candidate who is an immediate family member of a current board member shall be hired in the capacity of professional, temporary, professional, substitute, or support employee, nor as a district administrator. On paragraph 4, that would move to the definitions section. Paragraph 5, I'll read the proposed change, the entire paragraph. No candidate who is an extended family member of a current board member shall be hired in the capacity of professional, temporary, professional, substitute, or support employee, nor as a district administrator, unless the candidate receives the affirmative votes of a majority of all members of the board, other than the board member related to the candidate. The board member related to the candidate shall abstain from the vote to approve the hiring of the candidate. And then the last suggestion by Dr. Bacher in paragraph 6 would be changed to no employee shall be hired, assigned, or reassigned to a position which requires that employee to be in the chain of supervision of an immediate family member or requires an immediate family member to be in the chain of supervision of the candidate. An employee cannot be promoted to a position which places that employee in the chain of supervision of an immediate family member. However, to avoid the chain of supervision conflict, the family member to be supervised can be transferred to another position for which the supervised employee is qualified and which does not diminish the supervised employee's employment status. And then in paragraph 7, based on the changes to the definitions, we suggest adding extended family member to the end of the sentence regarding the hiring process. So then that would read, no district employee shall participate in the hiring process for any candidate who is a member of the employee's immediate family or extended family. That's the end of the suggested changes.
Are there any comments or questions? Dr. Munson?
Yeah, first, just a question. Could you please read the proposed definition of a chain of supervision?
Sure. Chain of supervision, all supervisors in the line of direct supervisors from the superintendent down to the employee's direct supervisor. For example, the typical chain of supervision for a teacher would be the superintendent, an assistant superintendent, and the teacher's building principal.
So if I understand that correctly, then this would actually, I hear this as a substantive change in which we would not only exclude direct supervision, but also indirect supervision from the policy. Is that?
That is accurate. That is correct.
Okay. That's great. I mean, so that's actually a pretty big deal to me. I appreciate the suggestion because that was a major concern that I had with the policy. And I think it's a lot better if we exclude both direct and indirect supervision. I wonder if also is there a concern that, well, I'll just put it a different way. I'm still not completely comfortable with the new provision that allows a way to hire the family members of board members, because even if a person abstains from the vote, it seems to me that the board itself is very public and political, and it's not just whether or not things were handled transparently and in a fair way. There also needs to be an appearance of handling things fairly. And it's not clear that the benefit gained by allowing the hiring of board members is outweighed by the dangers of that. And so my proposal would be to strike the new language that allows for the hiring of family members of board members. And I guess I'm also interested in what the administrative position on that is and what other board members think.
It's only the extended family members.
Correct.
The immediate family members are still not allowed, but it's the extended family, the stepsons.
I can read it if you. Yeah.
Yes. Hold on, I got to find it again. Yeah, so I mean, I'll be frank. I didn't catch that. I was thinking it was everyone, because to me some of these positions like grandchild are, I think of them as pretty close relatives. Mm-hmm. So maybe my objection isn't as strong anymore. But I guess it's still not clear to me that this needs. It seems to me that the goal of the administration to provide more hiring flexibility is still met without this, and not having this sort of protects public perceptions that there's no hanky-panky going on.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. So just to be clear, the current policy that we have right now in place, it only it speaks to immediate family members and then defines them. And so this actually isn't changing a current practice.
I see. Oh, okay, so this is actually more, it's just specifying what we do in other cases.
Correct. There was language missing in the current policy that did not speak to extended family members at all. It was just mute and didn't speak to the fact that board members could not participate if they were related to an individual and had to abstain from a vote. And so that was added there to be very clear. And we then added the definition of extended family members.
And this is a requirement of law?
That's correct.
Okay. That makes, so thank you. I mean, I had read it. I mean, but I remember Mr. Fisher's comment last time that, well, actually there's a way in which we're tightening things up, and I appreciate that. I'll have to give it a little bit more thought then, because I hadn't sort of caught that sort of distinction. So thank you.
Sure.
That's all.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Dr. Provolitis. So we'll have our third reading with these updates at the next board meeting. Moving on to curriculum, educational conferences. I'll entertain a motion to approve the educational conferences.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Champagne?
Yeah, it's more about just the fact that I know that, for example, PSBA recently move their conference that they're having in the fall to virtual. And are we getting back all these fees that we are paying if they are moving to virtual? Because I know PSBA is doing it at no charge now versus where we were paying before. So I'm just wanting to make sure if there's a shift in some of these conferences, we're able to get back the cost if that's the.
I mean, as of now, for example, with the PSBA conference, you are right. Like, since there was a shift to virtual, then there was a refund, correct? As of now, all other conferences that I know of have, if they were scheduled to be in person, they have remained in person and/or they were virtual to begin with. So I can't sit here and give you an absolute guarantee that yes, if they move to virtual. I will say most organizations have been very amenable and work closely with school districts and recognize that if there is no longer significant costs associated with the conference, they then give those back to the district.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Allen, will you call the roll, please?
Dr. Munson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Winch?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
Dr. Bacher?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Motion passes. Moving on to other educational entities. Report of the CLIU. Ms. Bowman?
Yes, thank you. I actually had another meeting the same night as the IU meeting, but I did get notes about what happened. I just didn't attend. So the IU is still meeting under a hybrid capacity. So some of the members are meeting virtually and others are in person. Most of the meeting was very routine with your normal, very long personnel agenda of hires and resignations. The two items of note were that Lehighton School District Board Director Wayne Wentz decided to resign, and he's somebody that I've served with the whole time I've been on the board. So, and I enjoyed serving with, so that'll be a loss for us. I assume Lehighton will appoint somebody else soon. And the other item is just that the IU is going to sell 8 older vehicles that they weren't using to a different intermediate unit, Colonial, that needed them. Other than that, everything was very routine.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Are there any questions? Then moving on to announcements, we had an executive session before the meeting tonight where we discussed personnel and litigation. Our next regular scheduled board meeting will be Monday, September 13th, hopefully in the normal boardroom at 7:30 p.m. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.